Welcome back to the Marketing and Sales Acceleration Workshop, sponsored by Real Good News. We're excited to have Stephen Sopko back. Stephen is a Fortune 500 sales expert who's worked with Dell, Oracle, and Palisade, and he's here with us. Our first two sessions focused on brand. We walk through how to reduce the sales cycle by focusing on trust and building trust with people and really understanding our own story and how we showcase our value to the world. And our last session with Stephen, we got introduced to the Sopko triangle. Can I call it that? And so people either come to our product because they identify with the problem and the problem that we solve for them, or us, the brand, the person behind the brand, or the product itself. So today we're going to continue past the buyer's journey and go into more on positioning. So Stephen, thank you for having us, and thank you to all the participants. You guys are you're taking high value time and you're putting it here, and we're so thankful for that.
Thank you all for showing up for day 4 of the workshop. So this is cool. Today we're going to get into authority and how you broadcast your authority, how you show authority to people who you are either trying to sell to or you just need to do something for you, whether it's make an introduction or open a door. And so we changed it a little bit just because of the scenario that some of y'all are facing, because you're not always selling something. You're just trying to get people to help you. And so that's what we're aiming to do today. At the end of today, you're going to have both a hook that you can use online, whether it's LinkedIn or your social media presence. You'll also have hooks you can use offline, a hook being a short thing that you can say that will open that door. And since we are all here in person, we decided to focus a little bit on the face-to-face stuff, because that's what it seems that people are the most afraid of. I know I am. I've been into hundreds of networking events and I still get anxiety every time I do. So that's what we're going to work on today. And the title of it is Communicating Authority to Build Trust. All of you started out at a certain level of authority, and it's been really cool to see y'all kind of step into realizing you have a lot to offer, you have a lot to say, and we're going to talk about how to believe that you do, because all of us have imposter syndrome. I think those of you who've known me for a long time, in the Fortune 500, there are 2 personality types in leadership. They are either people with crippling imposter syndrome, like us, or they're functioning sociopaths, and there's no overlap. A sociopath basically believes everybody's here to hear what I have to say because I'm fantastic. And people with imposter syndrome are like, why would people listen to what I have to say? There's so many people who know more than I do. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. All right, so this is from last week, and we're going to talk about it a little bit again. So I just wanted to touch base on it to remind you. The idea is you are over here in the corner. And people were asking me, why do you start you over there? Shouldn't you be here and we go left to right? Well, we always start with the customer, and then we start with the customer realizes they have a problem. So these are the 3 roles in any, not only sales function, but anytime you're trying to get somebody to do something for you, whether it's publish your book, whether it's give you a facility, these are the parties, and the it is the thing you want to have happen. Now, last week, we also talked about the lines in this triangle. You start with them. They have to realize they have pain and they want to spend money to resolve it. They have to see a fit to the pain of the solution, and they have to see a value and a return on investment. So the question they're trying to ask is, why this? Out of all the possible choices, why would I choose to solve the problem at all? And if so, why would I want your solution? The second piece is it to you. The idea there is you've built it, but do they trust you? See, trust exists on 2 lines here. Do they trust you as a person, as a company, as a brand? But then also, do they trust that you can deliver the thing they want? And those are 2 different things. They may trust you to be true to your word, that sort of thing, but they look at your company and they're like, you've been in business 6 months. You have 3 employees. Here are all the things we're worried about. We like you, but we don't trust that you can deliver it. And that's on this line. It's capability and proof. And this is where you get hung up when you're thinking about authority. You think you have to have proof for everything. You don't. If you have a compelling offering and you know you can deliver it, the key is being able to talk to them in terms of being able to deliver it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into the authority piece. And then where we're spending our time today is on this line. The nice thing about the you to them line is they just need to say they know they have pain, they've decided to solve it. Now do they trust you to be the one who solves it for them? And this is the line you spend most of your buy something from you if they do not know, like, and trust you. And so often people know you. They may even like you, but they don't trust you. And it's not that they think you're a bad person. You just haven't given them any reason to trust you yet. You spent all of your time getting to know them and getting them to like you. Sometimes the thing you do to get them to like you makes them not trust you. What I mean by that is I tell jokes a lot. That gets people to like me. Does it get them to trust me? Maybe not. You know, if he's going to crack a joke in front of this group, do we really trust him not to crack a joke in front of our customers? So I erode trust by doing something that builds up my like. So it's another triangle, but I'm not going to put two triangles up here because that just seemed a little bit. So we're going to spend the time on this line today. So why does trust matter? Trust is the currency of sales. Everything we do in sales relies on trust. So often, every sales video you're going to watch on LinkedIn or on YouTube is going to talk a lot about sincerity. Once you can fake that, you've got it made, right? It's all about how to create trust where you're not trustworthy. And so don't get discouraged when you watch a lot of stuff about sales and negotiations and doing business, and it's all how to trick people. Tricking people kind of went away a few years ago. When things moved online, suddenly you can trick somebody, but your business is going to fall apart because word gets out that you trick people. So trust is the currency of sales, meaning that you won't get deals. You won't get what you want if you can't build a trusting relationship. And here's the key. It has to be both ways. I have a lot of customers historically, none that I'll admit to, that I don't trust. I don't trust them to pay their bills on time. I don't trust them to agree the scope with me. But you know what? I need to pay my mortgage. So I go into no trust relationships. And there are some challenges that come up, and we'll talk about those today. All right. Now, last week we talked a little bit about the different channels, and business to consumer is all about emotional decision making. It's based on how they feel. And when you are trying to convey authority in an emotional context, that's rough. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that. But think about it. When we think about an authority, we think about an expert, somebody who knows a lot of stuff. Fine, that's intelligence. This is wisdom. You have to convey that you are emotionally capable. Otherwise, you're going to not get the trust you're looking for. The difference with business to business is it's all intellectual decisions. It's all about return on investment stability. A lot of you want something from a business, and you have to think about it in terms of when you go and you try to pitch to them, I'm really passionate about this and we do good in the world. The business is like, well, that's fantastic. What's the return on investment? It's a pure intellectual decision. And the key is you don't need to deal with them much to get through the door and get what you want. So you just put on that hat and be intellectual with them. A lot of times, though, they'll appreciate your passion, but when it comes to make a decision, they're going to make the intellectual decision. And for those of you who are interested in selling to the government, we talked last week about B2G, business to government, is all about compliance. Am I following the rules? Am I going to get in trouble? The people doing the buying are never the ones who need the thing. The whole system is set up that way. So there is no loyalty allowed. Well, I say that. You might get 3 to 5 points because you've been a good vendor for years. But that's 3 to 5 points on often a 200-300 point contest. You're only going to get a few points for being loyal because they're just not allowed to be loyal. Because back in the day, loyalty meant you went to your Uncle Ted and you spent the government dollars with your Uncle Ted. And Uncle Ted sure would deliver, unless he didn't, in which case, what are you going to do? He's your uncle. You know, it was all cronyism. And so that's why all of these rules were put in place for the government to stop that from happening. All right. So this is kind of where we think about trust being critical, because it's going to drive not only the business today, but the referrals that you need to get more business. And this gets to when you are trying to line up people to support your business as fans of yours because you need a facility or you need a publishing contract or you need somebody to license your stuff. It all comes down to you're going to get today's thing but you have to think 3 or 4 jumps ahead. Because so often we get today's thing and we have poisoned the well for what we're going to want 2 years from now. So, case in point, we do a bad deal because we need something today, and 2 years later, we're regretting it. What's the old expression that I never use in front of my wife? It was marry in haste, repent in leisure. And so often that's the key. I don't use it with her because I don't want her knowing that expression because she'll use it on me. So, all right. So that is why trust matters. What happens? Let's talk about there are 2 dimensions of trust, and they line up to the type of business you want to do. The first dimension of trust we touched on a minute ago, and that's authority, is your credibility. Now, here's the thing. I always think about the substitute teachers I had in middle school for algebra. They did not know algebra. Believe me, they did not know algebra, but they were 1 chapter ahead of me. So you know what? They knew more algebra than I did, and they're the substitute. I went to the office a lot for pointing that out. So, the key there is I call it the middle school's algebra substitutes guide to business. Because here's the thing, you can be an authority if you are passionate about it, interested enough to learn more, and 1 step ahead of your ideal client profile. That's the key. And don't pretend that you have a PhD in something. You don't necessarily need to. We talked about you being an authority last time. Yeah, in a very positive, supporting way. But yeah, I mean, that's the key. And it's funny because talking to each of you, you're all an expert in something. You may not like the thing you're an expert in. That does happen. Sometimes people leave an old job and they never want to talk about that job again. For me, it was government procurement. I never ever wanted to talk about that job again because I did it for 10 years and then I sold to the government for 3, and I swore after that never again. And you know what? Since moving to Brevard County, what I do every single day is talk to people about government procurement because it's what we do here. So you can try to run away from it, but your expertise will chase you down. So the key that you want them to walk away is I think you're an expert, or at least more of an expert than me. I have a couple of clients who are surgeons. Those people can open up a YouTube video and figure just about anything out. They're wicked smart, but they are not going to paint their house. They think they can because the mindset you get when you're a professional is I went to school and became a surgeon, therefore anything is easy. Right? You think I did something really hard, therefore everything else in my life is figure outable. Well, they don't want to paint their house. They want to pay somebody to paint their house. So you don't need to get in a battle of expertise with them. You're not going to win. They already think they know everything. What's the old joke? What's the difference between God and a surgeon? God doesn't think he's a surgeon. So that's the key is you just need to be a little bit more of an expert than them and get credit for that. And that's what we're working on today. Okay, I know it's kind of the near the end of the day and it's kind of warm in here. Is everybody okay? Because I know I'm kind of going through the stuff, and the good news is we're going to go through it pretty fast. The bad news is it's kind of sleepy making. So and that's only because I had pineapple cider for lunch. So the last point I want you to think about is enthusiasm and interest can also convey authority. We think that we have to get on YouTube and be experts in something to convey authority, but a lot of times online people will take your enthusiasm as authority. And I think about 2 people every time I think about this. One is the everyday astronaut who did not start out as an authority. He doesn't have a PhD. He's never been to space, but everybody watches his YouTube channel for one reason. He's incredibly enthusiastic. And over time, he's built expertise because he's the one that walks around the factory with Elon Musk looking at rockets being built. He got there because of enthusiasm. The other one who always comes to mind is Mike's weather page. Now, I'm looking around. I can always tell the lifelong Floridians because we're all on Mike's weather page between June and November, refreshing the heck out of it, right? Mike is not a meteorologist. A lot of people point that out to Mike, but he aggregated all that cool stuff because he's fascinated by it. And he built a huge following. Not so much because he's got a PhD in meteorology, he does not, but because he had enthusiasm and interest. So if you're struggling with how am I going to convince people that I need to listen to me, that I'm an authority? Don't discount that. You're allowed to say, I'm tremendously interested in it. I've been interested in it my whole life. I did this, this, and this with it. And now I'm doing that. That's the way you stack the story. Right. So that's authority equals credibility. That's the intellectual side. I think you're an expert. Now, who are we selling to when we want them thinking? Generally, business. It's an intellectual sell. So that's a big part of who does the authority piece. But the other piece, and you have got to turn both of these keys, is to build connection. And this is even the case when you're selling to businesses. I think you're an expert. I feel you understand me. I feel safe. I feel like people are going to think I'm smart if I buy your thing. I feel like this is the right move for me. And most of the founders that I work with are very technical. They're legal professionals, that sort of thing, and everybody wants to discount this. They're going to feel great because they bought a great product. No, they're not. They're going to feel like they bought something, but they don't really know who sold it to them, and that kind of poisons the well for future sales. So what you're trying to do here is say, look, how the customer feels during the sales process is important, but how the customer feels in the first 30 days after the sales process is equally important. You see commercials on TV for cars that do not need to advertise. Everybody knows what a Mercedes is. They've pretty much known since the Second World War. Let's not go there. But the whole point is that they advertised to convince people that buying their car was a smart move. They're back advertising. So when you're thinking about your relationship with your customers, all of us, me included, sell something and then walk away. We think, oh, thank God they bought that. Now I never need to talk to them again. Well, that's cool, but they don't feel like you valued them. They feel like you valued their money. And by and large, they're not wrong, you know? And so we need to really think about that when we're figuring out what we sell and how we sell it. The key is you've got to have both. And back in the day, you could get away with not having this because about 10, 15 years ago, there was a thing called a transactional sales model. And all salespeople were coin operated. You'd put in a quarter, they'd go sell something. They'd bring you back 50 cents. Put in another quarter. And you really didn't care who they sold it to or how they felt because who are they going to tell? 20 years ago, you sold somebody an awful car. I used this example last week. Who were they going to tell? Three or four friends who were not then buying cars. So you could get away with ignoring the long term relationship piece in any deal you were doing. You really can't do that now. Everybody's connected. And this is not only when you're selling something, it's when you're trying to get somebody to partner with you, when you're trying to get somebody to lend you their credibility so you can get what you want. Well, all of that is relationship building. And relationships all start on trust. Okay. Any questions on this before I move on? And it would help everybody if we ask some questions. Yes, sir. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So, unless you go to sleep, in which case, no. so, but so thank you. Yes. But any questions about these and how you have to have both? Because that is the thing that I get a lot of pushback on when I do this in front of tech boards because they're like, I really don't care about the connection. Well, I know you don't. Remember, see above functioning sociopaths. Yes. That's a terrific question. It really depends on what you're selling. I mean, if you are selling something that requires a very personal investment, and I'm going to kind of do a little weird thing. You would think if you're selling something to a business, it's an intellectual sell, so you'd lean heavy here. But then the business person has to go sell it to their internal constituencies inside the company. That's a lot more like a consumer sale. So they have to get very connected to it. I'm thinking like a tech product that a company buys, but then all of their people need to implement it and then adopt it. Implementation and adoption are where a lot of tech solutions fail because they don't have connection. So it really does depend on your market, your customer base. Case in point, and I'll pick out yours. In Norway, they're very fact driven. They're looking at, but they also really need to trust you. Is that because I used to? Because the biggest challenge I had was I had a Southern European sales manager who got transferred to the Nordics, and she was very friendly and very. We are all going to have a good time, and that didn't go well. Didn't go well at all. So you have to think about who you're selling to, what you're selling, and what you want to have happen. That's a terrific point. You balance it. Mm, yeah. I always talk about appeal to authority as my favorite logical fallacy. Have you ever heard logical fallacies are what people use to pretend to have logic around a decision, but it's actually wrong? Appeal to authority is the logical fallacy where you say 9 out of 10 doctors agree. Well, you've appealed to authority, but that may not be true. You may have done a survey that 90% of doctors agreed. You're trying to do here, but you're absolutely right. We all think that going here for authority is a shortcut because all I need is a PhD to say you should do it. I've got authority. But reality is if you don't have connection, you don't build a long-term relationship. And this gets back to people. I talked about people coming through the U channel on sales, me buying Snoop Dogg's ice cream. Well, I did it because I have connection to him. Now I know to think about his brands a little bit before I buy them, but his wine was fantastic. So I built a strong connection to his personal brand. That brought me to him. So that's the key. So you're absolutely right. Coming through on connection is a great way to build that longer term relationship. And I'll come back to you, sir. You had a question. Okay. Yes. Yeah. That's a fantastic point. We talked about that in the buyer's journey last week. That's all the way at the end, kind of where the rotor rooter thing is, because marketing has done the heavy lift in terms of marketing and then your platform. You're not calling somebody up saying you should impulse buy that. That's a sales approach. So yeah, you're right. You want to have that solid connection. And again, trust has to build in order for them to be willing to. I've bought so much stuff on the TikTok shop. Let's not tell my wife. But and realistically, I hate to admit this, my hit rate with the TikTok shop is better than Amazon lately. And that's weird. You would think that it's such a weird trust model, but they've built trust. So I don't I've got no complaints. We good? Okay, cool. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Right. It's interesting because by and large it's generational. Case in point, Gen X doesn't trust anything about anybody ever. What's the old expression in journalism school? Used to be your mother says she loves you, check it out. That's the Gen X approach to everything. It's like, we've been played since we were kids and we're never going to get played again. Weirdly, Gen Z is kind of mapping to that. That is a very Gen Z attitude as well. So the thing is, so many people trust the review process and the mechanism because we want it to be true. And then we see things about the review system being gamed. I used to have entire crew. I think what we have to do is we have to find what is the best intellectual approach based on the connection we built. I think it's one of the reasons why Tara Lane, my wife, started going out onto Reddit because it was unfiltered, and she values that sort of unfiltered actual experience with a product. Yeah, yeah, and so I think that's this is good. Tell your story. I think it comes down to if you can ask your customers to go and leave genuine feedback on these different channels, but that gets back to your ICP, your ideal client profile, and knowing where your ideal customer goes. And then I went to a restaurant the other day and they did a fabulous job about this. They said, look, we used to be on Foursquare. Why? That's where it's like saying, I'm on MySpace. You should come and check it out. But they said, look, I know you're probably not on Facebook, but all of our customers are. Could you please say something nice about us on Facebook? I love that you're doing Google Maps. I love this. I love that. I really appreciate it. And those are welcome, but we really need Facebook. And I opened up my Facebook account that I haven't posted on since 2017. And I said something nice about them on Facebook. because they knew what their ICP was going to look for and they knew to ask me to go do it. And my experience with them was so good, I did. So, but no, these are good. And the crosstalk is going to save us. So please, by all means, jump in. All right. This is my favorite. What happens when you don't have trust? The most important thing is if there's no trust, the gatekeepers win. What do I mean by that? If they trust you, they let you talk to their bosses. If they don't trust you, they don't. It's as simple as that. And so many people go wrong by making Sandy, the CEO's gatekeeper, their best friend. They send Sandy gifts. They do all this stuff. And every time they do that, they erode that because Sandy does not play. I'm making up Sandy. She's a composite character of everybody who's ever not trusted me and not let me talk to the boss. So I think that's the key. Trust equals access. It's one of the reasons why down in the triangle model, we talk a lot about that. That U line is all about building a connection that gets them to understand that you are trustworthy. And that's the key. A lot of people ask me, I'm not trustworthy. How do I look trustworthy? And I say, well, there's your problem right there. The only way you get trust is first by giving trust, and second by being trustworthy, visibly trustworthy. And that's tough for some people. They view business as a zero sum game, and they earn a lot of trust. And I'm going to tell you, I had to do it because my first few years in my startup, this is only 10 years ago, I burned a lot of trust with my people because I pushed us really hard. I tried to build a $20 million company when we were only at $2 million in revenue. I burned a lot of trust. And then when I got better, I went and got, learned how to be a coach, learned this, learned that. There was no trust left in the tank. So you can be a good person. I think I'm a good person, but you've done things that make people not trust you. And sometimes you have to change markets completely. That's what I had to do with Rachel when my wife pointed out that my ideal client profile hated me. It's like suddenly I'm not on the advertising anymore. So two things here. Trust is access. We often think about trust resulting in loyalty. And remember, consumers drive by loyalty. Business and government tries not to. So that's the most important thing. So many people go broke thinking those companies bought from me, they'll be back and buy again. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But those companies will go away the minute somebody comes along who offers a better thing than you. They have to. It's an intellectual decision. It's not an emotional decision. And I know so many people who went broke thinking the government was going to keep buying from them. I was a contracting officer for long enough, I'll tell you. They will, but it's a risk. Okay, we talked about this a little bit last week. We all want the shut up and take my money moment where we're selling something that is so in demand that people do not want to talk to us. They just want to give us money and get the it. They want the it at all costs. The challenge there is they love the product, but they haven't gotten to believe in you. So if you get into one of those shut up and take my money moments where people are really excited about the thing you're doing, that is an opportunity for you not to pile on, this is why I'm so awesome. It's an opportunity for you to find out more about them. Remember, anytime a customer gives you an opening, you should never try to influence them or convince them. You should ask them a question so you learn more. And that sounds a little woo-woo, but I got to tell you, it works. I mean, people want to be listened to because so often we aren't. So that's the key. The strong, them, it, they love the product, but weak, you, them. This is the consequence of no trust. All right. Cool. Any comments or questions on that? Is there anybody or any company you don't trust that you're okay being on recording with? Anybody who's burned your trust? Please don't say Stage 2 Ventures. We're awesome. So, TikTok shop there a minute ago. So, no, I hear you. I hear you. It's, well, I think that's the key. It only takes one bad experience. What's the old expression that, if you have a somebody out there who hates you, they'll tell 10 people. Somebody who loves you is only going to tell 2. So that people tend to grind on negative experiences a lot more than they do on positive experiences. I know that's my thing. I have a whole bunch of stuff I'm mad about. All right. Okay. So how do you build and support authority online? And Jenna, if you're, because online and building authority is kind of your wheelhouse, so I don't want to kind of let them miss out on an opportunity to hear from you on this. So, all right. So what's interesting is we all think first impressions happen online. And so many of us, if we're selling to consumers, that's not wrong. They will get a first impression of you based on an online ad or an online connection. But what I find is more important is this second thing. People research you before they buy. So often we put stuff out there. I put stuff out on LinkedIn and I'll get 5 views on LinkedIn impressions, right? That is a horrible, horrible, horrible post from that point of view. But all 5 of those are my ideal customer profile because they formed an impression. Now they're doing their homework. Remember, they're doing intellectual buying. And it's funny because Caroline and I don't buy anything unless she has a chance to go and research who they are online. Who are they? Who are the people behind it? So even if you're not getting a lot of traffic online, don't give up because the ones you've got to talk to 6 months from now may go and look at a post you did. I did a post 4 months ago about a client of mine in Malaysia, and I just got a deal because of it. And I just did a post 4 months ago that 5 people looked at. So I get a lot more on my sunrises. I go out to the beach, I take pictures of the sunrise, and I get a lot of throughput on those. A lot of people like those, but it hasn't generated any business, I don't think. All right. The other key about building and supporting your authority online is it gives you leverage for referrals and partnerships. A lot of you want your business to benefit from somebody else doing something for you. And case in point, back in the day, an author could be totally antisocial, sit in a closet, write a book, and Stephen King would send it to his publisher because that's who he was, and they would publish it. Now you have to build your own following in order for a publisher to look at you. They want to see that you have X subscribers or you've built some sort of momentum around your brand. So for referrals and partnerships, you have to build your online authority so they trust you. It's not just about people buying from you, you need trust from. You need people to open doors for you. And then finally, online trust does create the foundation for in-person trust. Now, what does that mean? I've gone to a lot of trade shows where I meet somebody and we start talking and they say, "Oh, yeah, I know you because I've seen you on LinkedIn," because my ICP is all on LinkedIn. So I do most of my work there. I need to do more on a couple of other channels, but that's where I put a lot of my time. But that online trust creates a foundation for in-person trust. And if you do anything in person, you need in-person trust. That's the second half of this. We're going to talk about building in-person trust. And here in Brevard County, you may sell largely online, but if people are your customers and they're coming to your facility or they're buying your product, you're going to have an in-person relationship. Any thoughts on that before?
Of the folks at the workshop today, how many of you have a headshot that you love? No hands are raised.
No hands are raised, including me.
Right. And it's just a little thing, but sometimes people can get so many assumptions from just a simple headshot. And that's just one small thing. You know, people are going to think, "Oh, they're from 1998," because the headshots, or it's like very low resolution. So this person isn't really going places yet.
Try not to take any of this personal.
Yeah. Or it's from a long time ago, which is actually better as long as it's a nice photo. Time ago, right? The so small things are what we're talking about here. There's a lot that you can do. Also, just getting out there in general. I mean, who feels really comfortable with the idea of going out and positioning themselves as an authority? Is there anyone in the room who's taken steps to get there and they feel like they're on the right track? Nice.
There with you.
We got like a couple hands.
We can all do better. Yeah.
Right. So I would share. Can we go back to the previous slide? Sure. Actually, there's almost like a balancing act that happens between slide 8 that we have here and then slide 7, where you're trying to get access. I think people will give you a lot of grace if your headshot is terrible, if you really know them. One thing that helped in the past year kick down some doors as it relates to gatekeepers is knowing so much about that person, not in a creepy way, but in it, knowing so much about their problem that I can go in, create a 5 slide deck and show them the words that they need to hear, the steps that we would take to solve their problem, sending that to them as a Loom video, loom.com, so that they can then pass it on to their boss. So I don't have to talk to their boss. They can have a conversation about how much they think, how dumb they think I am, right? They can have a private conversation that I don't have to be a part of that actually gets me in the door. What's great is I don't have to have 6 conversations in person to make these sales. They actually, it expedites the trust factor where the decision makers like do it, and then the person can be enabled to then bring you in. So that's what I wanted to add. Also, go ahead.
See, to that somebody can take forward for you is to represent you with another person, right? Basically.
Does this triangles, since you didn't post the other one, apply to both selling something, an item, whatever it is that you're doing a service, and let's say like I need to make a pitch to somebody with money.
Right.
Does it all, because my brain's kind of going in both directions as you're talking about it. I'm like, okay, customers, but then I'm over here like, no, wait, I need a facility. So I need to think about how I'm pitching it. So does it kind of all work the same?
Yeah, so many people try to get money based on the it or based on the you without realizing they need to do both. That's been my experience. You know, the people invest in people, even if the idea is great, they need to build trust in you and the idea. So they need to turn both keys. So yeah, the triangle does. This is I leveraged the triangle from a negotiation class I took years and years ago, and it was all coming down to, we all think about negotiations as me versus you, but negotiations are really about we both want something. That is the third thing. And you know, if we can pivot to where we're both talking about the third thing we both want, we can get to an agreement. So.
Yeah. And if I had to summarize your question, it's, do I need to take the same steps towards authority, whether I'm trying to fundraise from a private institution or I'm trying to land a customer? And I think it's always going to be a little different. But I've found that if I know enough about that person's problem and what they care about, they will open the door and maybe my jazz hands will work. One example is I know nothing about rocket fuel, nothing. Actually, that's not true. So when I was in college, my first internship was at For Dummies, the For Dummies books. And I worked on rocket science for dummies. So I knew enough to get, away with some of this. But my point being, I needed to help raise money for a rocket fuel company. And so what I found was who's invested in material science already, because they may not care about rocket fuel, but they know materials, right? Also, our byproduct was hydrogen. Who cares about hydrogen? I made a list of 100 investors. I know that they know a lot about what we're invested in, and they have some skin in the game because their funds are already tied up in that. So just by reaching out to them and knowing that they knew our market made it so they would do a demo session, a pitch session with us. So then we could get a no or a yes. Remember, we talked about how the maybes will kill you. And so I was not intimidated by getting a no from a lot of people. We got a $150,000 check from a gentleman at Blackstone Capital in one evening because he cared about the byproduct being hydrogen. So,
well, I think the thing that really always pays off for me is when I become obsessive about knowing more about my customers. And the thing is, and we talked a little bit about this today, there's an old model in sales that says there are only 3 tiers of prospective customers for your business. There's tier 1, which are the people who know the pain, they have the problem, they have money, and they're ready to spend some money. That's usually about 1 to 3% of your total addressable market, if you're lucky. Sometimes it's a fraction of that. All right. So that's 1 to 3% of people who are your tier 1. Tier 2 are people who are missing one of those things. They don't have the money. They don't have it budgeted. They think they have a problem, but they don't know it for sure. Usually that's 10 to 15% of your total addressable market. The rest are tier 3. And how you approach the world is I tend to sell very high-end services. So I get very obsessed about tier one, and I spend 80% of my time there. I only spend about 15% of my time on tier two, because what you're trying to do is show tier two that they should become tier one. Tier three gets 5% of my time, and it's all authority building. It's all when you are ready, because a lot of people think they're going to go out into tier three and sell fear and motivate people to become tier two. Then you're selling fear. You shouldn't sell fear, because you become the bad guy in that. So I would rather drip good content. I learned a lot from you, because I got a proposal from her last year, and you sent me so much value in that proposal. I still go back to it sometimes. You found, here are the 80 competitors for your idea. And I'm like, I only knew about 3 of them. So just, so you provided so much value up front that it built so much trust. And that's how we ended up here. So.
Right. And if we want to pull an example from the group here, I know some people are maybe curious, well, how many people are stuck on this? Like, you're kind of wondering how to get out in the market. Anybody's kind of, okay. Awesome. I'm going to pull out the dance studio example, because we've got 3 books. They're about dance. She's a passionate dancer. She's an author. There's a lot of dance studios in town, but what would incentivize someone to bring a book in? That's sort of a transactional, if someone knocks at the door and says, hey, I have a book, can I sell it at your studio? How are you going to create that relationship that's a win-win? So it could be you look at somebody who has a pain point where they need more children's programming in general. That could be a library. It could be actually Gleason Park has a gap right now. They can't serve kids 0 to 4 years old at Gleason Park. So you start to make a list of who has these specific types of problems, and then you know what their pain point is. So it's more of a win-win than a transactional conversation.
Well, and then you're coming in through the them part of the triangle. You have demonstrated that you've learned enough about them that they should be willing to talk to you. And you're not coming in through the it, because you're not trying to sell them something yet. You're learning about them. So, yeah.
10 years ago, one of the biggest problems for corporate or for the EDC or for anybody else was attracting and retaining talent. So when we went out to get sponsorships for Groundswell, most of what we talked about was attracting and retaining talent in this area. So our value proposition was really helping entrepreneurs break down barriers, have that hockey stick growth curve, be surrounded by resources. But people who could give us sponsorships really didn't care about our value proposition. In fact, it was a threat, right? Oh, you want to poach my employees and empower them to start their own thing, right? Awesome. But yeah, really the people that got it, they had a talent problem, and we were like, well, what if this place was worth staying in, because brilliant minds were coming together after work to collaborate. And that was the sell. And it went from being a hard uphill battle in the beginning. Many people said this would never work. I was telling Stephen about this too. It was really cool to see how many people said Groundswell will never work, who then became sponsors on the sponsor wall. It's like, awesome. But eventually your product sells itself. I remember walking through here, nothing was built out, and just getting a check for $5,000 from an accountant. They just got it. So eventually your product, it's going to be hard at first, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, see what that's
and you weren't selling it to them. You were trying to convince them to help you achieve a vision.
Right.
That's the same thing here. So a lot of you are not directly selling. You're trying to achieve your vision. You're going to follow basically the same approach.
So anyone who believes young women need to be empowered and happens to have a passion for dance is going to be a great partner for you.
Right.
And it may not be where you'd expect.
That's always been the case for me in face-to-face networking. The thing I'll tell you, when we get to the face-to-face part, I'll remind you, 99% of the people you meet in face-to-face networking will never buy your product. They are not your customer. The 100th will. Well, awesome. Now you got to talk to 100 people to sell one thing. The reality is all of them know somebody who will. Every single one of them has somebody in their network who is your ideal customer. So we're going to get to that in a minute. So what to do online? A few things. We just talked about clear, professional, and approachable. My profile picture does need some work. But the other key is to look approachable. Staying on the profile picture example, thank you for that. My profile picture used to be very intimidating because the market I sold to valued intimidation. They wanted a really hard-charging, mean looking executive who was going to fight on their behalf. It's a lot of times you'll see, like media about lawyers. They're standing there with arms crossed, staring into the camera. I'll take on State Farm for you. Right. Well, you want them to be a badass. I mean, so that was great. That was my picture. And then I started being like, I'll be your coach. I'll help you find yourself. Well, you don't really want a badass to do that. So I had to change, And so that's the key. You want to be clear, professional, and approachable. So many of us were so afraid of selling, we build a lot of artificial barriers. And there are some barriers you do need to keep up online because there are freaks out there, but you can also miss some opportunities. So don't invest in oil tankers. Those are bad. All right. So content, this is an important thing. Whenever you're thinking about your content, anything you put online should educate. It should never self-promote. And now sometimes you can hang a lantern on it and say, no, I'm going to be a little self-promoting here, A and B. But it better be at the end of a lengthy education article, because that gets back to providing value up front. So make it more educational than promotional. If you've educated them enough, they'll know they need to buy. Remember, people never want to feel sold. They want to decide to buy. That's fetch versus throw. All right, social proof. Obviously, you need reviews, testimonials, and partnerships. You will get more social proof from the people you are partnered with than you will on your own website. When other people talk good about you on their stuff, that means more than you talking good about you on your stuff. Does that make sense? Okay. Then this is my Achilles heel is consistency. I post on LinkedIn. I should post on LinkedIn 3 times a day, 7 days a week. I post on LinkedIn 1 time a day, 4 days a week. I'm not consistent. The algorithm hates me, so it doesn't show me to people. And then I complain about it. They don't show me to people. Well, I'm not showing up. Consistency is everything. It differs by platform. But there's a lot to be said for showing up regularly. And then finally, the hook. We're going to build hooks today. And building the hook is how you get attention both online and in person. In person, I call it the mic drop moment, where you say something so powerful, the first few words you say, and then you could walk away and you've done it. That's what we're going to work on today. That was foreshadowing. So, all right. What not to do online? Doing selling, not providing value. We all know somebody who oversells online. I swear to God, I do not need soap powder or protein powder. I'm good. I don't need anybody ever sell me any more of that. Then inconsistent or confusing branding. This is all, I'm a cautionary tale here. My branding is all over the place for my personal business. I've got people who think I'm the games at work guy. I've got people think I'll help you with your resume. I've got people who think I will help you restructure your sales process. My branding is everywhere. It's a mess. Ignoring reviews or customer feedback. So many people don't want to engage with their customers online, and there's a lot of science on how to do it. If you do, you should never be. There are a couple businesses here in town that are apparently terrible because they get a lot of very negative comments, but it's mostly from people coming off cruise ships, and you consider the source. But I have a lot of respect for them because they respectfully respond to every single one. So don't ignore it just because it's mean. Silence, disappearing for months at a time. Sometimes you get your big deal and you stop because you got your big deal, not realizing it's going to be really hard to start again when that big deal finishes and now you need another big deal. And then finally, this is something I see a lot of us doing. We all chase trends. We want to be popular online, so we do stuff that we think is trendy and is going to make us look popular online. The key is, and we start to think about, I need a certain number of clicks, I need a certain number of subscribers, instead of what is the value that's actually being created out of my effort. And if you're getting value from it, doesn't matter how many clicks you got. Does all that make sense? All right, have I been enough of a cautionary tale? So then you might ask yourself, why am I listening to this guy? That's why I asked you to talk. So online is tough. Online is much tougher than in person, which sounds weird because online you don't have to face anybody, but it's tougher because there's all this stuff. All right, so hooks. Now, this is a very simple online hook format, and you're gonna get a handout. In fact, I'll go ahead and hand these out now. Please don't over focus on the handout, but so you trust there will be some help here. Online, it's who you help, what problem you solve, and then why you're credible. Oh, by the way, pet peeve of mine. How many pet peeves can one guy? If I see one more video on TikTok or YouTube saying, I have 12 years in this, and I'll tell you that, I don't care. Put it at the end, not the beginning, because they haven't told me anything I care about yet. Who you help? Oh, good. You're going to tell me you help me? I care about me. I don't care about you yet. Who you help? Be specific. Ideally, in a perfect world, the people you're trying to reach will recognize themselves instantly. Who you help, what problem you solve, focusing on their pain, not your product. So often people they get it partially right. They're like, I'm a commercial real estate agent. And they say, who has sold 300 properties. Don't care. That's about you. That's not about me. I'm a commercial real estate agent who works with people who need bigger space. Boom. You talked about them. And then why you're credible, the proof point. This is showing authority without bragging. And this is where you can say, I've got X years of expertise. On this, we give you a bunch of different ways to claim expertise. It's very straightforward. The idea is you leave them with, this person knows what they're talking about, and I want to learn more from them. So here are a couple of examples. I help brides and grooms, that's who, capture stress-free wedding memories. Okay, that's the what. And everybody wants a stress-free wedding with a proven planning process, proven, that's the credibility, that's been trusted by 300 plus couples. Okay, this sounds boring, but it works. And I will ask for your input on this because, again, it's online hooks. So, and then this is actually mine. I guide mid-career professionals, that's who, through career pivots, that's what, using storytelling techniques. I've talked to Fortune 500 leaders. Now there, I'm not saying how many, I'm going for a level. I've talked to people at this high level, therefore you should trust me. Never, ever, ever trust somebody who says, I've sold at a high level, therefore you should trust me for your small business. So many small businesses have tanked because they hired a Fortune 500 salesperson. It's a different kind of selling. But here, navigating through your career, you can go a little high and impress them with the level you've worked at. So we can pause here and y'all can start working on your hooks. I think probably we've talked for a minute here. Do you have any comments on hooks you'd like to make before we turn them loose on working on their online hook?
Question for you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Do you why don't you share your hook? I'll share a hook and maybe we do something that's interactive with people and sharing their hooks and
cool.
Getting feedback.
I mean, we can absolutely. What I was going to do was give people who may not have theirs a chance to work on them and then get feedback on them, because then we're going to move into face-to-face, because the last page in this package is where if you take your online hook to a networking session, you will destroy your business. You've got to do it differently face-to-face than online. So there's and then sort of break and do the exercise.
I think we have to, yeah.
Okay, thanks. So are y'all cool with that? We'll kind of go through the rest of this and then break, because we're about to switch to face-to-face. And face-to-face matters a huge amount, no matter what you're doing. So it depends on the industry, but a lot of people shape their buying decisions face-to-face. Then they go online to do their research on you. The second, credibility is always felt before you hear it. If I say something to you that sounds really credible, but I don't look credible, or you get a weird vibe from me, you'll see that face-to-face. And in networking sessions, I can go through a networking session and pretty much tell you within 5 seconds whether I'm getting a red flag or a green flag about whether I should talk to you more. The weird thing is, that doesn't mean I have a skill. That means I'm fooling myself. Humans believe that they are very good judges of character, even when we aren't. So, and we're going to show you a little bit about how to communicate better face-to-face. Trust builds fastest through shared experiences. I have a former boss that we were stuck on in an airport in Thailand for 3 days. Wow. Wow, I've got a great shared experience there. And I talk to them every couple of weeks. Trust is built. And believe me, until we got stuck together in Thailand, I didn't trust that person at all. But we had a shared experience, and that built trust. So if you can put yourself in situations where you are sharing an experience with your ideal clients, with your tier one, that means so much more than 100 things that you tried to get them to read. You're sharing an experience. And then people do open up more in person. And I think there's a lot of psychology about why people open up more in person than they do on Zoom calls or online. One theory is we all record Zoom calls now. And so people get very hesitant about what they say in a way that they aren't face to face. The other thing is people tend to overshare face to face, they undershare online. And so what you want to do is if you've got an opportunity face to face, you should have good questions to ask them. Leading questions, not so much to put them in a position where, aha, now I can make you buy my thing. No, I want to learn more about you and what your pains are and how you've tried to solve them. And remember, people always want to talk about themselves, especially me. But yeah, it's just human nature. So the idea here is, remember, if you learn nothing else from this whole thing, in selling, listening is more important than talking. And that's weird because that is the absolute reverse of what most people think about sales. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in a proportion. Yep. Wow, my grandmother said that a lot. I don't know what she was talking about. All right. So this is how you can kind of bridge those instant signals that people get. One is, do you fit the room? I used to overdress in Brevard County a lot because I came here from Austin. Okay. Austin has clothes stores. We have Walmart. All right. So, I mean, I went to Walmart and I bought my clothes. Do you fit the room? There's no shame in fitting the room. Case in point, because of the work I do, a lot of times I'm going to a women in technology event. Do I fit the room? Not really, but I'm an ally. I'm a supporter. But it doesn't mean you can't go into the room, but you have to understand and be respectful of the people who do fit the room and realize you're there kind of on sufferance. So do you fit the room?
It's interesting how complicated that can get at times, especially Andrea brought up fundraising, or I recently had someone who was pitching at the Venture Forum, which is one of the larger investor events, ask, should I trim my beard? It's such a simple question, but sometimes people who have always had money dress a certain way, and then people who are scrappy and hardworking choose to dress another kind of way. So you sort of a mix, right? I'm like, actually keep the beard, dress in such a way that it looks like you're too busy to really care about your appearance, sort of became my answer. And only because that's the feedback I got early on. I was asked, please don't dress like you work at a bank. And I thought, wow, this is how I dress. And you don't want to manipulate or fool people or not be yourself by any means. But it is interesting when you really think about what do people need from you. I mean, it may make sense to wear gym clothes, Andrea, if you're going to other gyms. So,
well, and I think the other key is if you're going to Miami, it's a different look.
It's true.
It is.
It was, so. I would say it's split down the room though. You had the jeans and the black t-shirt with, the designer clothes all in one.
A lot of it depends on who you're selling and who you're selling to and what you're selling. If the old rule used to be you never wanted to be more than 1 or 2 clicks away from your ideal customer. So if your ideal customer is a jeans and black t-shirt person, you better be a jeans and black t-shirt person. If your ideal customer looks like they work at a bank, you don't need to look like you work at a bank, but you need to look like you didn't wake up in front of one. So I think that's the key. So, well, but you see, that's the thing. And I will say, I'm going to go way out on a limb here. Men have it a lot easier. We have uniforms and men can get away with a lot because, nobody really expects us to do well. So when we show up and we don't look like we woke up in front of a bank, we're already way ahead of most people's expectations of us. So do you fit the room? Second, are you approachable and confident? Now, this is your energy. And we all talk about vibes a lot, but this is where you have to practice. I go to so many networking events where, frankly, I have no chance. In fact, I'm doing one next week, mainly because Tara Lane and I haven't talked about what we're doing together in front of anybody yet. We haven't gone to a networking event, met people as husband and wife, and talked about something. We need to practice. Otherwise, we won't seem confident. We're both very confident people by ourselves. And so it's all, have you ever gone on a job interview just to practice going on job interviews? No. I didn't know I was doing it because I didn't find out about it halfway through. But I'm like, well, I'm just here for the practice now because because I was obviously not going to happen. But no, I think it's just why did you go?
Confident and going on interviews at the time. I had just moved to a new city, didn't really know, how the people were there, and I just figured I'll go on as many interviews as I can until I find the job that I'm really interested in, and I will feel more comfortable.
Beautiful, beautiful. The thing that I would add to that is, do you know how I said earlier that some people think I'm the game company guy, some people think I'm the resume guy, and some people think I'm the sales guy? It's because I've been to a lot of networking sessions when I didn't have figured out exactly what I wanted to have happen. So, one caveat there is make sure that you're talking about them instead of you, and you won't have that problem as much. If you go to events to listen to people, and one of the things that I'd love for y'all to practice is in a face-to-face scenario, your hook has to change based on what you just learned. So 9 times out of 10, when I walk up to somebody at a face-to-face event, I will say, "Hey, I'm Steven. Are you finding what you came for? Are you finding what you were looking for when you came here? Or how do you like the event?" Or I ask a question, they tell me something about, I'm here to look for this and I haven't seen it yet. Interesting. Why are you looking for that? I don't sell them that, but I'm genuinely interested. Genuinely interested. You have to be genuine about it. And it starts a conversation. I don't tell them who I am and what I'm doing until halfway through. It's about being approachable, and people will start coming up to you at events if they see you there a few times.
Yeah, push back on this if you'd like, but I tend to avoid ever talking about the event itself. I just find that people are there and they're feeling a sense of a transaction happening and they're wondering how they plug into this transactional thing. And I find that the more human I can be, it's real. And then I have a real connection and we end up introducing other people to each other. So the referral model becomes appropriate.
That's fantastic. The most important thing you can do in the first third of an interaction, say, "Oh, you're doing that? You should talk to Karen. She's doing that. Let's go find her." And because then you're a resource for them. Remember, we talked last week, if you show up as sales, they won't trust you. If you show up as a resource, they will.
Yeah. One example is, one woman right away, she told me, birds aren't real. And she told me about this conspiracy theory that she believed birds weren't real. So now every time we see each other in a professional setting, we get to go back to that one time when she told me that birds weren't real. So it's almost like you have an inside joke as soon as you meet each other.
That's it.
It's more fun.
You built a connection. That's the key. So approachable and confident are both important. I do not always come across as approachable. I know you find that difficult to believe. But remember, occasionally when I put my game face on, I've been a negotiator for 40 years. If I'm smiling, it's because I turned on a button in my head that says smile. When I had my child, my wife needed to put a Post-it note above the crib, smile, because I would lean over the crib like this. And the kid would look up at me. His name's Christopher. And he'd be like, and I'd be like, "I'm here. I'm executing the job of father." And, it's like, so not really approachable. All right. So I'd have to turn on the smile sign. All right. Clarity. This is what we're going to work on. Can you explain what you do quickly without sounding like you're an auctioneer? And what you do is do that by stripping out a lot of the superlatives you want to throw in and get really clear about it. All right. Clarity. More important is, can you explain what you do in terms of the person you're talking to face to face? Because the thing you get face to face that you don't get online is intel. Online, you have to kind of assume things about people from the channel they're coming in on or these various bits that you know about. Face to face, they're right there and they tell you. So if they're right there and they tell you something and you launched into your canned hook, I just told you I don't care about that. Well, I'm sorry, I just have the one hook memorized, and you're going to hear it. You have to be able to do it in terms that they care about short. And then balance. Do you listen as much as you talk? And do you listen more than you talk? I think I may have talked about this last time. Fathom has this new feature where they listen to your online communications and at the end say, "Hey, did you know you talk 67% of the time? And you had 3 monologues where you talked for longer than 3 minutes where the other person did not get a word in edgewise." I took a picture of that and put it on LinkedIn. Everybody who used to work for me, I got like 300 DMs on that saying, "Oh yeah, they nailed you." So I mean, it's just balance, face to face. It's crucial. 2 ears, one mouth. All right. I talked earlier about using your online hooks are dangerous, and here's why. You regurgitate your online hook, but remember, an online hook is designed to get somebody to convert, to do a call to action, to click through something. Face to face, you want them to refer. Because remember, 99% of the people you talk to face are not your customer. They all know somebody who is. So when you're thinking about face to face, your hook needs to anticipate the fact that you're trying to educate them about how to talk about you so they can talk you to somebody who is your customer. That's face to face. Online, a lot of times the algorithm has sent people to you. So you can kind of assume that there's a reason they're there and you want to move them through your process. Face to face, it's very dangerous to assume that, because face to face, you're there because it's a Chamber of Commerce event. One of the first things I did after I exited my software defense company was go to a Chamber of Commerce event and have a lengthy conversation with a guy who runs dry cleaning shops. We live in totally different worlds. So I had to realize, but he has a brother-in-law. Everybody has a brother-in-law. We don't like them, but we all have them. And that brother-in-law may work someplace that I do need. Right? So does that make sense that both are important, both are critical, but they're both for different things. That's why you don't retread them. You look like you had something.
Have the hooks ready?
No, I think we just handed out the hook thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we want to do anything interactive with anybody.
We will.
Okay.
We will. Does anybody have a hook they want to lay on us? Okay. I just did mine and y'all didn't applaud, so I'm okay with that. I've moved past it. So. Cool.
I empower little girls, the women of tomorrow, through faith-based books, all while moving with purpose and grace through the art of dance.
What is your credibility? I love it because you talk about who you serve and how you serve them. We just need that one piece.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that. No, but otherwise, it's I like it. Yeah, I like it because it's really clear. Anybody else? Yeah. It's tough to put yourself out there with it. It was very, very courageous. Go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's and we'll believe me, we'll all do it. So everyone will have a hook. So right, but no, it's a good point. That's cool. Yep.
Do you want to do one for Phone Storm? Phone Storm? I can try it. Okay. So at Phone Storm, we take all of the many minutia things that anyone needs to do in a given day. We collect the patterns and trends that happen in those, and we automate them using our online voice over IP system, which is trusted by over 200 people.
That's good. That's good.
It is pretty good though. I would say we use voice AI to automate and optimize the functions that businesses do all day long.
And another thought,
And we've been doing that for 20 years.
right?
But
That's
still.
factual. Well, and the next bullet, because I kind of cheated by rolling ahead. Start with your impact, never your job title or career description. Start with. I call it the mic drop moment. It's in storytelling. It's called the inverted pyramid, where you start with the end. You start with my first. Early in my career, I opened the former Soviet Union to doing business with the West and had 2 Nobel Prize winning scientists as contractors of mine. That's a big win. It's a big thing. You invert the pyramid and you start with your impact. So what you might do there is figure out what is the impact of doing that and say, have you ever had to wait 2 hours for an ambulance? Uh-oh. Not going? No, you didn't look happy with it. Yeah, what's the impact? That's the key. It's like start with the impact, and so again, face to face. Online hooks, you don't start with the impact. You just don't, because they got to you for a reason. But if you've listened to the person you're talking to face and your impact resonates with them, then you've got a chance. And if you're talking to somebody and they have small children, you can ask a question that opens the door to your impact. So many people say, and one of the fundamental reasons I started doing the resume thing that apparently I shouldn't have, was I made a transition from tech to space, and I found that nobody in space understands that what they do is cool. Nobody. I was talking to people who are designing the coolest stuff you can possibly imagine, and I've heard more passion from a career accountant at Dell. And because they all start with, well, I'm a vice president of this at giant defense contractor X, and I have a team of 320 people. And when I woke up, I went and got some appetizers. So I think that's the key. It's like start with your impact. Our division makes sure that the hatches don't leak. Okay, cool. I like not leaking hatches. You want to try it? Go for it.
This is the in-person.
Right, cool.
I provide an indoor, safe and clean environment for infants all the way to 4 years old, and promote active play through child-led play.
Nice.
Something like that.
Very cool. And on the last page, there's a cheat sheet. We let y'all do it without the cheat sheet, which is the classic format of an in-person hook is, how X and the result is Y? I fix that for Z. You know how kids don't want to play in playgrounds outside anymore? Because they get heat exhaustion, they get this, they get that. I fix that with an indoor safe solution. Now here's the trouble with that. It is so famous and it is so mechanical that you can sound like a robot when you're doing it. But it is the general organization of how people tend to accept information. It's one of the reasons why you always use the STAR storytelling format in an interview: situation, task, action, result. You use that because it's how people have trained themselves to listen. So think about your target audience, and when you're going face to face, the nice thing about that is you can be very conversational about it. And you can say, yeah, with my kids, I had this, and as a result, we had that. So I decided to fix it with the other, and well, I just did it with y'all with my son. I had to put a Post-it note up, and does that make sense? Because I liked yours. I've been doing it for, no, you did great. Well, and the thing is, we didn't give you the face-to-face formula. So we're going to do that next on the next slide. So no, we're good. The other thing I would say is focus on who you help. If you start with who you help, you will never go wrong in face-to-face. Now, I just told you a different formula, but if you panic, talk about the people you help. You'd never go wrong with that. All right. And all of us tend to lunge into our offer. Here's the thing I do. Instead of, here's the people I serve. Okay. And then face-to-face gives you an opportunity you don't get online. You listen to who they are first, then you stop and think, and then you tell them your hook. And all of us panic and lunge into our hook. We don't stop and think, because the biggest threat face-to-face is interruption. The biggest threat face-to-face is not them thinking you're stupid, not them laughing at you, this, that, or the other. It's somebody else walking up in the middle of you getting ready to do your hook, interrupting you. And then you get angry that you got interrupted. You're not angry at the person who interrupted. Maybe you're not angry at the person you're talking to, but you're angry about the situation, and it can spill you. That's why you practice incessantly about it. And one of the things I'll often do is when I'm practicing with a client on a hook, especially when I'm doing face-to-face, I have a red card. And they'll be getting into their storytelling. They'll be getting into their hero's journey about how they started as a junior accountant at Lockheed Martin. And then, this, that, and the other. I'll hold up a red card. That means somebody just walked up to the story you're telling your CEO and interrupted you. Now, what do you do? How do you recover? How do you pull back out of that? So with your hook, the nice thing is if your hook's short enough, you've defended yourself against a little bit of interruption. But just remember, if you do get interrupted, it's recoverable, but you have to think. And we all stop and think we've got to lunge right into talking because we're worried about it. And often that's because we're not confident because we haven't done it enough. All right. So the classic opening hook is this. You know how X leads to Y? I fix that for Z. You know? And again, it's too formulaic. Everybody's heard it before, but that's generally the structure. Now, I just said you lead with who. Well, turns out I'm a liar. You put who at the end in the classic format. I started to invert it because I realized too many people expect this. But anything you look at on online hooks and face-to-face hooks and networking, this is what they'll tell you to do. Don't be afraid to change it up. I was at dinner one time at Outback, with my sons. And the host who was seating people would say to them, how's your day going? And they'd be like, it's great. How's your going? It's great. I woke up. I heard that 15 times in about a half-hour dinner, to a point where my boys were saying, it was great. I woke up. You know, they were doing it for him. So you have to change it up, because the thing is, people will overhear you doing it. And therefore you have to have a slightly different take. You know, you have to have your B-side. You have to have a different approach to it. All right. So what you want out of this is not the problem. It's not the pain or consequence. It's, do you know anybody who needs this? That's what you're going for face-to-face. Remember, you want a referral. So in your case, you might say, do you know anybody with littles who, you know? Nice. Do you want to try it again with with actually having the Yeah. No, this is great.
So from what you just told me, I put down, you know how Florida has X number of playgrounds, or how Brevard County has X number of playgrounds. Did you know that only X number of playgrounds are shaded? This is what I have.
That's good, because you're starting.
I don't know the X number, obviously.
Well, and the beauty of it is you're coming in hard on authority. You know, did you know this? And the thing is, they're going to take that fact away. So you just gave them a gift in the opening of your hook, because a fact they can repeat to somebody else is a gift, especially if it makes them look smart. So no, that's cool.
Is it too much of a stretch to say that you help parents proactively prepare for, like, be ahead of developmental milestones? Oh. Okay. Awesome.
So the reason this works in the classic formula is it starts with a problem they've seen or experienced. Remember, they care about them. They don't care about us. And it's curiosity building. You know how A, then B. There's a terrific storytelling framework called and, but, therefore. You know, I started this and that, but then this happened, therefore I did the other. You know, it's and, but, therefore. It's a tough storytelling mechanism, but once you master it, it really works. This is similar. You know how X always causes Y? You can reverse it. You can say, early in my career, I had Y, and it was caused by X. Now I do it for Z. Now I fix it for Z. You can change up the order a little bit, but you have to put these three things in. And in a perfect world, you got 11 to 12 seconds. And that can be generous. Now, think about your audience. If your audience is warm, caring people, you'll get up to a minute, which doesn't sound like a lot of time. But remember, we can get 120 to 140 words into a minute. One of the things I always do when I'm telling people is, if you think you have a certain amount of time, realize you don't want to say more than 120 words per minute. A good friend of mine just did an introduction earlier this week. He got 2 minutes to talk. I said, that's 240 words. You'll be nervous, so you can go up to 260. Let me see what you're going to say. He had 750 words. You know, now he was going to sound like a carnival barker, you know, so we edited it down. You'll edit yours down. And then memorable. Because remember, the thing you want is for somebody to repeat your hook to somebody else. That's why the factoid at the beginning is fantastic, because they're going to repeat it. Did you know that only 4% of playgrounds have shade? I didn't know that. You know, did you know that X% of dance studios don't do this? So that's a terrific idea in terms of kind of you're making it memorable. And that is where it does kind of blend over into the online. They should not hear something from you face to face, then go online and see a very different hook, because then you just sabotaged your credibility. And we're all going to do them again. So, are we good? Want to move up? Okay. Do you want to do it, or do you want me to get the? Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. Ooh. That's a great change up, because remember, if you go to a networking event and you don't want to be the person who's, well, I woke up this morning. So if you've got a couple, that's fantastic. My favorite is the elevator. If you've got an elevator ride, you have something to talk about. We don't have a lot of elevators in Brevard County, and I wouldn't get on a lot of them if we did. But I think that's the key. I'm salty about it because I lived in a building in Titusville for 3 years that had one elevator that was out most of the time. Tells you a little bit more about me than. All right, so let's talk about common mistakes people make in face to face. First, talking too much, listening too little. This sounds weird, me telling you this, but I do walk away from face to face sometimes like, oh, I talk too much. And a lot of times I'll have a wingman or a wingwoman who'll just be like, please stop. And one of the challenges for a lot of us, we don't get a lot of socialization as entrepreneurs. We don't get to talk to a lot of grown-ups if we work with kids if we work with grown-ups. So we have a pent-up desire to talk to people when we get face to face, and it can come out really fast. The second, we sound like a recording or AI. And that is really, really difficult, because if you use words that don't fit your audience, if you're talking B2B when it's a B2C audience, you sound like I used to have a sales guy, who I worked in radio for a few years, and back in the day, they'd have carts, little tapes that you would put into a stack. Then you'd load the stack in, and that was 11 minutes of radio. The songs would play between the carts, but you could not change that order for anything once you loaded the cart. I had a sales guy that I worked with for 12 years who I could tell you what his cart was. Oh boy, we're going into that. It's going to be 11 minutes of tedium, right? So you sound like a recording. Don't do that. Change it up. Challenge yourself. Third, repeating how you opened elsewhere. That's I woke up. Fourth, you're confusing, or you're jargon heavy. You know what you do. You love what you do. Don't expect them to, because remember, they're not going to buy it from you unless you're going to a purpose-built event. If you're more jargon heavy, you're going to lose them. Overly aggressive pitch before trust exists. This is where I do that. Do you know anybody who has that? You haven't built any trust at all. You can be a little too aggressive. Remember, in a face-to-face, you're trying to get them to introduce you to somebody. There's a way we sell coaching. Steve Chandler came up with it. He didn't come up with it. It existed for thousands of years. But it is, you'll go through a coaching conversation with somebody. You're having a really nice conversation. Then you always get to the end and say, well, do you want some help with that? That's how you sell coaching. And people do it way too early before there's any trust. Hey, Chris. And then finally, forgetting to follow up after the meeting. How many people here need to call somebody? Because you had a good conversation and you never followed up. I've lost deals because I didn't do that. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid they're going to say, oh, yeah, I didn't like you at all. Weird, right? All right. So you, them is the foundation, because when they trust you, they'll forgive your mistakes and help you improve. Think about people you trust. Do you immediately shut them down when they mess up? Of course not. You trust that they meant well. Second, they're less price sensitive because they see your value. Remember, if this line is strong, they're less worried about the price. Because honestly, a lot of people try to move trust by cutting their prices, which always sounds crazy to me. If they're not a customer at X and they're a customer at half X, then either you were charging too much at the beginning, or you've done something that eroded trust. Because remember, anything you do here that makes you look weak calls into question whether you're the right partner. So it all balances out. All right. And then finally, they refer others and will become champions of your business. That's the key. If you've built that solid you them trust line, you're golden. All right. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. I have lost trust in people like that. People tell you who they are. My Angelou said that. It's like, yeah, listen to them when they tell you who they are. Okay. And this is the exercise we're not going to do. See, originally, if there were 20 of us here, we were going to walk around and network. So what we are going to do is throw our pitches out there, or our hooks. If anybody wants to try a hook in front of everybody, if you don't want to try it in front of everybody and you want to do it with somebody individually, happy to do that too. But that's that. Any questions or comments before I know you got to bail, right? Yeah. Thanks for coming. Good. I'm glad you were here. Cool. All right. Anybody got it? Thanks. I think Matt did an incredible job the first couple. You did a fantastic job. So yeah, it was a real privilege to do it. So
Yeah, and really, you all helped us to develop materials that we always wanted to develop.
yeah.
Like the idea was, how can we cut through all of the stuff that we typically do with the client in a really condensed way? So this was sort of a forcing function, stepping out and doing something. It appears to be for no reason, but really the materials that came from this and just kind of the feedback that you gave us is pivotal in helping us move our own groups forward. I'll give you an example. My website has been live for 20 days. It has some real problems. But some pickleball e-commerce shop out of California found my Substack material out online, and I wouldn't be posting to Substack if we weren't doing these recordings, and I had a reason to post. You know what I mean? So just by kind of stepping out, right? We're all kind of taking these actions, and they can lead to bizarre and beautiful things. So I definitely am excited to see where everybody goes, and I want to keep in touch. We have the Substack chat that no one's using, so I know that that's probably not a perfect fit. You did. She restacks my stuff.
This is going to drive you crazy because I'm like, we have a Substack chat.
We have a Substack chat where we can all connect at any time. But yeah, if you have feedback that you want to leave on the forums too, we'll always use your feedback to improve.
Make it better. Yeah. Is there anything we missed that you were, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I got a question about, is there any way, I don't have my my face-to-face or my hook prepared, and I need to think about it, and I was just following your lecture.
Yeah.
Can we reach out to you? Can I sort of send it to you or any of you?
Here's the thing. You and I are here every day. So if you want to stop me in the hall and pitch me, go for it. You're here a lot too. So if you want to do that, or if you'd prefer to do it on Zoom, we'll apparently the Substack chat will let you know how to do that. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't end here. So
awesome.
We're grateful to y'all for coming on your own time and doing this. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Approaches like I have to have a pitch because I hold dance workshops with my books, like a crowning ceremony, but then I want to pitch to sell my books online. So would that diminish my credibility if people see two different things? Because I have to have a different pitch to sell my workshops, and I have to have a different pitch.
Right.
Don't I have to have a different pitch to sell my books online?
Well, the question, I think it's weird because I always go back to music. I go to a concert, I'm buying the CD back when people bought CDs, right? So there is that idea that the workshop is based on the books. The books are informed by the workshop. So yes, you do have two different approaches to selling it, because one thing you're selling an experience, another thing you're selling a thing, and you are going to pitch those differently or talk to people. What you need is a unifying hook that talks. When you run somebody in a networking session, you need a hook that says, I do the workshops and the books to teach this to these people. you know, and that sort of thing. So you can unify them into your hook because you're talking about your overall mission, which is to teach self-reliance using dance. So that's honestly your hook. That's where I go with that, because then what you want is to remember, you want an introduction. So then you say, do you know any little girls that need to be more self-confident? Yeah, I know a lot. I'll introduce you. You know, so but that's what I come up with. So, but does that make sense? Okay, this is tricky stuff. Like I say, the in-person stuff is take care. Thanks, Mike. So, but yeah, yes, sir.
I think I got my hook.
Oh, cool. Let's hear it. All right. Is this online or in person?
So I think I've got two.
Okay.
One would be online and one be in person.
You
I'm
should
not
have
sure.
you should have two. Yes. Perfect.
So this one I'm thinking is the in-person one. Helping customers. Let me read it from here because I had to type it out. I can't read my own handwriting. Helping customers give unforgivable gifts by creating unforgettable experiences that are perfect for any office desk, loved by therapists, law firms, and thousands of coworkers that just can't stop laughing. Okay. So the other one is using pieces of that one. So what if I told you I know a product that is loved by therapists, law firms, and thousands of coworkers that just can't stop laughing? Introducing the Dumpster Fire Zen Garden. Zen Garden. Yeah, Dumpster Fire Zen Garden.
Okay. Oh, Zen Garden. Okay. That's cool. So are you open to feedback?
Oh yeah.
Because we don't want to I would be careful because what it's giving me is I'm getting advertising. I'm getting a kind of a pitch, and so I think you've got the bones there that are fantastic because the people you talk about. The way I do it probably in person, because remember in person is my wheelhouse, is, and I'll give you the off of the framework. You know how it's impossible to buy a funny gift without offending somebody? You know, because everybody has been there where they bought something they thought was funny and it was a terrible disaster. So that's the problem. And the results can be, especially today, can be catastrophic for your career and your reputation. That's why lawyers and other trust-based professionals use my Zen Fire or Dumpster Fire Zen Garden, you know, because it touches a lot of things. And dumpster fire, if you know, it's just, so that's where I go with it, is just I want one now. So you know, because can you like comb the sand? Oh, because I've got one that has an otter in it, and you know I'm bored with it now. I want a dumpster fire. So yeah, but that's what I come up with. What about you for?
Well, and I think about a corporate budget that's going to allocate some money to the dumpster fire Zen Garden. I really think you saw a corporate morale problem.
That's good.
So any kind of statistic about, you know, companies and just like talent retention and kind of the facts behind, you know, making a more authentic workplace starts with recognizing things at hand, is kind of going to like help angle you into any networking in person for sure. I don't know about online.
The other cool thing could be is if you're meeting people online who are managers, are you tired of being the manager that everybody thinks is a jerk? You know, and that sort of thing, because you can lean into, because then you're getting a twofer. Because there's an old movie that is really mean about managers called Office Space. Everybody who worked for me at one time or another has given me that movie. I don't want to think about why, but so you could lean into I love the sort of, if you wanted to sell 100 of them to a corporation, then you could definitely go into, you know, companies who are able to laugh at themselves have a culture. Companies who can't laugh at themselves don't.
Something about breaking down cubicle walls is kind of fun, or breaking down silos. Every company, big or small, thinks that they have silos.
Yeah.
So busting down the corporate silo with our Dumpster Fire Zen Garden makes me, one, laugh, two, I'm interested.
Well, yeah. And the other thing I love about it is you could have 100 of them and everybody gets one. Because that's the reason I asked about raking the sand, because then it's not just like because we used to do flamingos at Dell. You know, you 100 flamingos and they weren't cool anymore. this would be cool for, so does that help kind of, so what you're probably going to do when you're at a networking event face to face is lean into the idea of, do you want to be perceived as cooler? And again, it comes down to, you've listened to them, and then you say, so you're in a trust-based business. You have to be really careful about the gifts you give, don't you?
It really gives me Jim from The Office vibes too. So if all of your online content was a guy who sort of looked like Jim, pulling on other gags from maybe The Office itself or from just insider things that every office has to deal with, that's a sell for sure.
Yeah, Dwight sitting there trying to comb the sand, and the sand doesn't comb. I mean, right? So, yeah, you ready? Okay, let's do it.
I help nonprofits that are not meeting their fundraising goal. I don't know what word to use here, because they're misidentifying prospects or poor donor relations. And I have over 10 years experience fundraising for nonprofits like you.
Okay. Are you thinking about this as online or in person? Okay. Because the thing is, you've all done a perfect job of identifying the critical things you want in it. Now what we need to do is kind of shuffle them around and sometimes trim, so that because remember, you only got 11 to 12 seconds. But the beauty of it is, do you want to do online and I'll do face to face, or because
I always have the lines blurred between those, honestly.
yeah, I'm obsessed with the face to face because I've but
I think this may apply to both. Correct
okay,
me.
cool, go for it.
I help do good organizations do better financially. Mic drop.
Nice. That's a mic drop. That is a mic drop. Yeah. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And you could use that online. Use it online. And then the beautiful thing about it is, be careful using it with somebody who just fumbled theirs, because you're going to look super powerful and they're going to feel like a jerk, so because that is really good.
And then you can really lean into the heart behind why you do it, right?
Yeah.
For 20 years, I watched companies that really made a difference in the world struggle to take it to the next level. So that's why I'm in this. And
you can actually drill back, though, into the pain or consequence by saying, I've seen companies or nonprofits that didn't do a good job and their mission went unfulfilled, because that's the pain or consequence from not doing it. And if you want to say, how nonprofits often struggle with running their own organization. Well, if you don't do that well, the needs don't get met. And I fixed that for nonprofits in this area. So that's the classical structure. It's tough to follow yours, though. That was really good. Yeah.
I want to help. Are we?
Yeah, let's do that.
Are we comfortable with that? Are we?
Let's go for it. Now, who would you be telling this to?
So I would go for any small business that don't have a budget to do any innovation, to do any product development, and so on.
Okay.
That would be sort of my ideal place to start. Or with some of my ideas, I would try to approach a small company to see if that could help them to be more, to look more innovative.
Right.
But I don't know how to sort of give them any proof.
Well, I think the key is, you used a really powerful word there at the beginning that for me would be a good one in a networking session is, I work with small companies who want to differentiate themselves and appear innovative so they don't fall behind.
Fall behind, yeah.
Yeah, it's just because you want to differentiate yourself from other small companies. I have ideas that will do that, and eventually you'll have some proof where you say, and it wouldn't be part of your hook; it would be part of the conversation that follows the hook. Because then, remember, online you have a space to deliver credibility in a way that you struggle with face to face without sounding like you're bragging. You can get away with more of the packing in the sort of credibility statements online. For some reason or another, humans are wired to hear somebody saying, and I've done this for 11 of 12. Yeah, we check out then. So, but the online, you can do the, does that make sense? Yeah. So yeah, I think that's where I go with that. Ooh, that's a good one.
I did a couple in for General Electric, GE. Um, uh, yeah, mechanical. So well, I was working for GE.
Okay.
So it was sort of, I had some suggestions and it was lifted up and it was, I got a reward for it. So that's how it all sort of was born.
We could, so one of the things I'll always do back when I wasn't an entrepreneur yet, but I had changed a lot at Dell and other big companies. I talk about intrapreneurship, which is you're inside a big company, but you're a change agent. GE does have a reputation, kind of like 3M does, for internal innovation. And you could connect maybe better with a small company by saying, GE is just a collection of small companies. So in order to get anything done, you have to differentiate your part from the other parts, and that's what I was good at.
Cool.
That's what I'd lean into. So but it's just what comes up for me quick.
And I know for me it's a start, so it's going to be rough in the beginning because will have no reference from the outside world except what I did in GE. And
or remember, you don't have to and I did put a couple of additional ways to get credibility into the package, and one of the ones you might consider is enthusiasm. It's like something I'm doing now or something I'm excited about, and that can really accelerate people's trust of you, if you don't have some proof to point to. So if you say, I'm passionate about this, I've actually developed a couple things that do this or that, and maybe lean into that.
I have an assumption that I want to test. It's an assumption, so it could be very wrong. But is your customer corporate people? Okay. And they have a budget to bring in a consultant to help with something, or do they have an emergency when they bring you in, or no?
Yeah.
So are you placing bids? Are you competing in a traditional bid process? No.
The thing that I'm going back to this. So you don't have an it when you're talking to them, because it's not like you walk up to them with an idea, right? You want them to okay, that's cool. So sometimes you're coming into the triangle through this channel. You have an it and you want them to see it as valuable. Okay. Okay, cool. And then sometimes though, if you're trying to help them with innovation, you want to learn about them and what they're trying to do to see if that sparks an idea in you that you jointly create an it with them. Uh-huh.
The ideal way to do it would be for me to approach them with an idea. See,
Cool.
say that I've got an idea about a fishing rod.
Right.
So I would map out all the American or fishing rod companies and say, hey, I got this solution. Would this be interesting for your company to license or so?
Right.
And then hopefully from there build a connection and get some more work or some more problems served to me, which I could have a crack at.
Are you open to a different way of approaching it?
Yeah.
That lets you ask a question instead of starting from a position of expertise, because people dig vulnerability a little bit. So what you could do is you could say, what do you think is your biggest competitor? What's their advantage? What do they have on you? What keeps you awake at night as a fishing rod manufacturer? And then let them tell you what they're afraid of. Now, they're going to be a lot more likely to do that face to face than they will online, because people don't usually admit what they're afraid of online, except for rhinoceroses. I'm terrified of those things. But so if you go to a product show, and you could go to a fishing product show and walk up and say, I'm looking, there's so many fishing rods here. What makes yours different? And then sometimes they'll tell you what makes their competitors less good than theirs. Then you walk across to the competitor's booth. You don't say, those guys said this about you. What would you say to people who said that you're falling behind on that? and then are you interested in fixing that? That sort of thing. So again, you're drilling into their pain and then positioning yourself or your it to solve that pain. The other thing I'd really consider though is you're a personable guy. You should want people to hire you for you. I want Arwe on this. I mean, he's a good guy. He's got ideas. He makes other people have ideas. He's open to coaching and criticism, and he's in the mix. So don't discount your ability to come in and do a you based entry to this, where they're like, I don't know what I want him to solve yet, but I know he's somebody I want solving it. It just gives you a way that you can get into this sales triangle at any one of those dimensions. And the beauty of it is, and I've had this conversation with you as well. You both, actually, all of you, in some ways or another, that I don't have, and I'm jealous. All of you have something cool. You can do something for free for them to show them that you're awesome. Whether you hold an event, where you give them a few of your books, whether you do this, or you can do something that gets them liking you because they see how capable you are. You're living on this line. Can you? Obviously, I can. I just did it for you for free. I know I've been going nuts with that. So,
And I don't know enough about you or what you do on my end. That's on me. But my dad is an engineer, and his expertise is taking really big, complicated systems and making them small. And, I would say the biggest thing that he's up against with any customer is risk. They're not going to bring him into something usually because they're trying to understand the risk associated with this innovative leap that they all want to make. So they're sold on the idea of being innovative, but they're not sold on the things that they don't know and how to reduce risk. So do you think you could come in I help companies reduce risk and leap into really innovative ideas? That way, if they want to go with their idea that they're already kind of sold on, they can stay it, or they can bring in your fishing rod if appropriate. You're a reducing risk guy.
That's cool.
Everyone loves the reducing risk guy, unless you're really risky.
That's it.
Cody, we did everybody but you.
Let's do it.
So I put together a face-to-face one and an online one, and I'll start with the online one. And thanks to you guys, I've been able to kind of hone in on who I even want to say this to.
Right.
But, and forgive me, I also don't have the credibility part really nailed down. So I kind of took my own approach on that. But I have here, I partner with small to medium-sized businesses in transition to build the best possible version of their visual identity by leveraging modern tools and a sense of empathy.
Okay. And is that the in-person or the online?
That's the online one.
Okay. All right. I have some thoughts on it, but because I'm in the same boat you are. I'm trying to remember, what was the online thing? Okay, here we go. I help. So you start with who you help. So, what I would suggest is, I help businesses in transition. Start with them. You're starting with I, though. Sometimes businesses in transition, or if you need a completely different visual look,
Okay.
you're ready to make a big change. You sort of start with them, and you're bridging into that using the online. So who you help, what problems you solve. Well, you kind of started with that. You're ready to make a big change because you just sold your business, or because you just bought a business, or because you just had a big change in your market, that sort of thing. So that's what you're doing. And then you lean into, I'm an expert at creating a completely different visual look. And I remember you said a couple weeks ago, based on tool sets that nobody else is using it, so it looks unique.
Right. That's why I mentioned leveraging modern tools and a sense of empathy. Because
Nice.
my whole thing is designed with Carter, and Carter's my last name because it's easier to remember than Cody. I get called Corey all the time. So
Right.
for branding reasons, I go with Carter. But I did design with Carter because I just like the idea of collaboration throughout. So that's something that I also tried to pull into this as well, because I do like learning about other people's businesses. And, I feel that in order to create the look that they want or the idea that they're going for, I have to understand them. I need to build a connection with them. And for my face-to-face, and feel free to tear this one up too. Um, do you know any businesses currently in transition? Well, I partner with small to medium-sized businesses during these transition periods to help build the best possible version of their visual identity.
You know how sometimes your business looks stale? I, you know, I create a brand new, fresh look for a business for customers this size. You know, just so for companies that are in this industry or in this size or whatever you want to zero in on. The and I hope y'all will forgive me because I'm hopping around here. Do we have an extra? There we go. All right. So for the face to face, the formula is the audience is at the end, but you know, leading with the problem of, you know, if you've got a stale look to your business, or you know, if you're, the other thing is I'm kind of thinking about something that Jenna put in one of the early packages. Are you in a noisy marketplace where you're struggling to stand out?
Yes.
That's where your empathy and your, well, I'm thinking about the people you're talking to. Are you in a marketplace where you're struggling to stand out? I use empathy and the latest technology to give you a unique look that separates you, that pulls you apart, you know, that sort of thing. So that could be something. And then again, if you're face to face, remember 99 people don't have the problem. And you're not going to run through 100 people real fast face to face to find the one who does. You want it to be, do you know anybody who just feels like they're stuck? You know, that's been through marketing company after marketing company or position after position, and they just don't feel like they've got the look they're going for. And if they say, no, I don't know anybody, well, do you know anybody you'd like to avoid that problem? Because then you can kind of flip it to more forward looking. Does that help?
It does extremely. Thank you.
Ah, nice.
So one thing to add, I had the privilege of working part-time to run sales for an agency for a minute. January, it's like 6 months stint. And whether I was talking to a group with 700,000 in their budget for marketing every year or 100,000 in their budget for marketing every year, they were consistently saying the same thing, which is not what I would lead with typically in a face-to-face. But I think at this point in time, it's really relevant. They said, we just want someone to care about us.
Ooh. Ooh.
And I thought that is so interesting because they're just being vulnerable and they're saying what they need. And it's across the board, everyone was saying it. So to be an agency that is going to do the right thing and meet with someone and really care about their business, I would just come out and say, I would never say, I don't mean to like totally correct you, but I would never say that I work with small to medium sized businesses because sometimes people who are a small business will maybe want to work with somebody who's elevated. You know what I mean?
I work with growing businesses. I work with anybody who's, well, I work
Every
with
business should be
that,
growing.
yeah, or I work with businesses and organizations who need a fresh look. Well, sometimes though, growing can have a negative connotation. If you just laid off a whole bunch of people, you don't think you're a growing business right now, you're retrenching. And so a lot of times you're in the middle of a transition internally, and that also creates an opportunity for you. So I work for businesses who are going through change. I work for businesses they're growing rapidly and need something, or they've just sold or been bought, or they've had a new challenge in the market and they need to address it with a fresh look. You know, so you kind of cover all your bases that way. That's where I go.
Kind of bring the word white glove into it too.
Yeah, that's
empathy. Yeah. I give I do white glove digital transformation for companies of different sizes here in Brevard County.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm happy to work remote with my daughter, just lean into like the personal side.
And the thing is, we can even go to the standard face-to-face formula about, how people who do visual design really don't care about you. And as a result, what you get back doesn't look like you. I fix that for companies that are going through transition.
And one way I would move the conversation forward is ask them, what's your biggest marketing problem right now?
Yeah.
They'll be happy that you asked.
Yeah, because they'll tell you. There's the only thing people love to hate more than marketing is their lawyer. So anyway, all right. So did we help? Well, y'all were fantastic. Okay, cool. I don't know if I have your email address. You sent me the list. Oh, we do. Oh, that was the full list. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, then we need your email address. So yeah, and if you want to, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, and so could you just write? Could you just write your email address down? I go old school, and I'm like, here's a pen and a piece of paper. Could you? I just, I would just love it if you just write that down for me. Nice. Oh, and it's all on Substack. So okay, cool. That's man, I got to get out there and look at that.
Thank you. And all of you may notice that in my own efforts to launch my own brand, I just featured other experts instead of myself. Stephen, thank you for taking a risk and doing this out of the blue. When I asked him, I'm like, I think I'm going to start next Thursday. It was like 1 week away. And you did it, and I really, really appreciate it. And I think this sort of applies to a lot of the businesses in the room too. You're doing books, and when you do something like I equip parents with tools to help young girls step into their identity. It's a bit of a broader net. It's a broader net, right? And then someone who's maybe not of faith, it applies to them. And it is a tool. You're giving them a crown. You're helping them, visually help their kids step into their identity. Mm-hmm.
It's if you don't have, and just the thing you just said, thank you for that, by the way, is that if you don't have somebody who you're friends with, who their business is kind of allied with yours or adjacent to yours or that sort of thing, you need to make that friend. Because you can help each other in ways you can't imagine until you're sharing kind of what you're trying to do or your problems or that sort of thing. Because I never would have done this at Groundswell without you encouraging it, because I do other stuff, but I love it, and I've had so much fun doing it. It's now going to be part of my offering, but I never would have done that if somebody I was friends with who had so if you don't have that, find it, and if you can't find it, let us know and we'll see if we can connect you to somebody.